Now today we're looking at the very popular WIX motorcycle oil filter. We've already opened up Fram, K&N, and High Flow Filtro. In a couple days we will do a comparison among all four just to see where the differences are. That being said, let's go ahead, cut open this guy, and see what's on the inside. Now this filter is made in the USA and it's close to $9 on Amazon. Regarding the canister, we'll do more of an in-depth review once we compare all four filters on the bench in terms of we will measure the thickness of the canister and also we will weigh it. And that will give us a good idea on the burst pressure. And I can tell you for sure, the WIX XP here has a 250 PSI burst pressure rating. So if you want to keep an eye on that regarding the differences, just please click that bell because there are for sure differences among all four filters here. Secondly, many of you already know, by the way, that Mann+Hummel is the manufacturer of WIX filters. So a lot of times I get requests, can you do a Mann filter? And we've done one, but Mann+Hummel is indeed the manufacturer of these filters. Now this on top is just a coil spring. Sometimes you find a stamped piece of steel. They both have the exact same function, and that keeps all of the components nice and tight inside the filter. I tend to like the coil spring. I think it's it's a little bit more, I imagine, to manufacture a coil spring versus the stamped piece of steel, and you typically don't find this, so I do like finding the coil springs on these filters. But this is the main parting piece. Now as you can see, this is the media, and we have metal end caps and a metal center tube. Now some filters don't use metal end caps, so that's a nice plus. And as you can see, nicely constructed. In other words, when they attach the metal end caps to the media, sometimes you'll find some overspray with the gluing. In this case, very, very nicely made. Regarding these dark spots, that is just me. In other words, as I rotate this, my hands are dirty and it's just dirtying up the filter. So this has a 21 micron rating. The flow rate is typically between 8 to 11 gallons per minute. And up on top here we have a bypass valve. Now the whole point behind this valve, really two functions. Number one, under very, very cold conditions, this valve will open up and unfiltered oil will get into the engine. Secondly is if the filter here, if the media is completely clogged, this little valve will open up and again unfiltered oil will get into the engine. Now don't forget, on many motorcycles the motor oil is shared with the engine and transmission. So it's a nice safety feature that you find on most filters, but it's interesting to see how they engineer it because some filters they just do it a different way. So metal end caps, metal center tube, 21 micron rating. This is enhanced cellulose if you're curious, and the valve opens up between 8 to 11 PSI. Okay? Now this guy over here, this is your anti-drainback valve. The whole point behind this valve is when you shut off the engine, instead of having all of the oil drain out of the filter, this little valve retains the oil inside the filter. So the next time you start your bike or your car or your truck, there's oil readily available, and it really prevents dry starts. It's the whole point behind them. Now typically what you find is either nitrile rubber, in other words the material that they use, or silicone. In this case, typically if you see a black anti-drainback valve, typically it's nitrile rubber, and if you see a reddish material, it's typically silicone. But I'm fairly certain this is indeed silicone, and the reason why I say that is number one, the thickness in between my fingers here. Nitrile rubber is a thinner material in terms of what they use on these filters. This seems quite thick, but secondly, just knowing WIX XP, that the type of materials that they do provide it tends to be on the higher end. So I'm guessing this is a silicone anti-drainback valve. I'll get a better idea when I weigh it, and we'll weigh it compared. For example, Fram here has nitrile rubber, and K&N uses a silicone anti-drainback valve. So we can get some ideas regarding the weight of them. But that's what the whole function behind this little guy is. And then on the bottom, you have a all steel base plate, and of course this is your gasket. And when you change the oil, of course, just put a clean dab of motor oil in the end there to prevent any leaks. And that's really what you have here. So that's what we're looking at regarding the WIX XP oil filter. Again, we will have the comparison up within a couple of days. Very excited for that. There's a lot to talk about regarding the canisters and the flow rates and all that good stuff. So very, very excited to compare all four. And until then, any questions, comments, please leave it below. If you'd like to see any of the filters, please leave it below. And until next time, thank you for watching.